I've been loaned some new toys. So this is what I've been loaned. Okay, I should, at this point, before we go any further, thank Mike Jones, who is the drummer of a band called Innovator, for lending me a bunch of toys that I can showcase on the channel. So those that don't know, Innovator is a band that tends to tour the south coast of England, or the southern part of England, I should say, not just the south coast. And I will put a link to their website down below and to their YouTube channel down below, so you can go and check out Innovator. Give them some publicity for kindly lending me these toys. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. The first of the toys. Actually, it's not one thing, this. It's actually more than one thing, but it's kind of the same thing. By the way, all of these are very dusty because they have actually been in storage. Mike's put everything in storage, and he probably hasn't used a lot of this stuff for, oh God, I'm not sure how many years he said. I can't remember the conversation, but many years. Anyway, the first part of this is these things, and I'm going to do a much bigger video on this. Okay, so this is just kind of a bit of a quick show and tell. But these were, and he's given me 4 of these. So there's the first rack, and there's the second rack there. And these are the Boss Micro series of, or Micro Rack series is what they were officially known as back in the day, of effect units. And Boss eventually made 12 of these over a period of about 2 years. So they started producing them in 1985, and I can remember seeing these in the late 80s. And by 1986 they had released 12 of these units. They're designed to work the way that a lot of Boss pedals are designed to work, in that you have one power supply, it's 9 volts, and it just daisy chains up the effect units. So if you look at the back, you can see that I've taken them out of the box to give them a good clean before I showcase them. But these are them sort of not good cleaned yet. But you can see the sort of daisy chain piece there. So in out, in out, in out with these cables. Most of them are actually stereo. So. And I can remember these when I was learning to play, because they were still quite prevalent in the shops in sort of late 1980s stroke early 90s. And actually what they did was they came with a half rack stand, and you could basically buy them. You put the power supply in the bottom, which was rack mountable, and then you could put about 6 of these, I think, in above it, and then you could go on to the next one. And what's really funny about that is that the power supply is really designed to power 4 or 5, not 6. Or maybe it was 6 including the power supply. So you couldn't power all 12 from one power supply. You actually had to have 2 or 3 power supplies to power all 12. As you can see, these things were one U high, and they bolted into a rack mount, which was just a shelf like that, to make them a 19-inch rack. But each unit is effectively half a rack in width. Now, I've quite often looked at these things and thought to myself, you know, they would be an interesting thing to do on the channel. And then, of course, Mike has produced these, which all need a jolly good clean. But that's the first part of the toys that Mike has loaned to me. Now, the next thing that Mike has loaned to me is this thing, a K1R. Okay. Again, very, very dusty, and I can feel it. I can feel that these are so dusty because it's getting up my nose. But really, this is the K1R, or the Kawai K1. And Kawai made this in 3 flavours. And a little while back I did Whatever Happened to the Rack. So this is obviously the rack, known as the K1R, with R being rack. They also made a desktop module called the K1M, where M stood for module, and they also made a 61 key synthesizer. I had to quickly look at my notes, which was the K1. And these were described by a few commentators in, I think these were released in 1985 or 1986, I think it was. I could be wrong on that because I haven't written the date down. But they were released around about the same time as the Roland D50 was released. And I think probably Kawai suffered from the fact that D50 had been released, because there wasn't a great deal of cost differential between their 61-note keyboard and the Roland D50. So why wouldn't you buy a D50? But they were described by the commentators of the time as the poor man's D50. So I'm quite looking forward to firing that up. It comes with 256 presets, I believe. So that should be quite an interesting thing to sort of run through and find out what this thing is all about. So that was toy number 2. Now toy number 3 is the reason why Mike lent me the toys. And before I bring it up, I'm just going to move it there for a sec so I can just lift it. It's in response to this thing. Okay, so Mike and I were having a conversation before Christmas about the fact that I had invested in a Behringer RD9. In fact, I invested in a Behringer RD9 in April last year, so that's almost a year ago. And it turned up just before Christmas. And honestly, I've done very little with the RD9. I've had it out, I've played with it, I've made some music with it, but I haven't done an awful lot with it because I just haven't had the time. At the moment I'm sort of finishing work and feeling dead tired in the evening, so I'm not actually, apart from maybe an hour of playing keys, that's about it. I'm not really doing an awful lot else. So anyway, I mentioned to Mike that I'd received that, sorry, the dust is really getting up my nose from these things, and Mike said, I've got an original. Do you want to borrow it? There is Mike's original 909. It's a bit grubby, it's a bit dirty, needs a good clean, and it hasn't got its battery in it at the moment. So I haven't done anything with this yet. I haven't switched it on. I haven't checked it out. I will be giving it a thorough clean before it showcases on the channel. But this is Mike's 909, the original. It has MIDI on it, as you can see from the back, so it can be MIDI'd up. I'm not sure what revision of the 909 this is. It's definitely not, I don't think it's a 1, but I'm not sure whether, I think they did more 2s and 4s. So I'm not sure which revision this is, whether it's 2 or 4. I don't know how to find that out at the moment, so I've got a little bit of research to do to be able to find that out. You can feel it's been well used, you can feel the scratches on it, but that is an original 909. So these, of course, were produced between 1983 and 1985, back in the early 80s. And like the 808 that preceded it, this machine was considered a flop by Roland. Until, of course, the dance and hip-hop movement came along in the late 80s and made this and its brother, the 808, and some of the other classic TR drum machines from Roland at that same time, into monster dance floor machines. And it's probably the reason why that it was originally a flop, because people couldn't work out how to use this, that it was used by the producers in the dance, hip-hop, electro, whatever you want to call it, all those genres of dance music. Because why it was used by those producers? Because it became very, very cheap. Originally retailed in the UK for about £1,000. Well, actually, I've written down £1,000 in brackets, £999, which is £1,000 all but a pound. If you now look at these models in on the various portals, etc., for selling them, they sell quite often for a bad copy will sell for about £3,000. A good copy will sell for £3,500, and a exceptionally clean copy probably upwards of £4,000. So, you know, these things are now like gold dust, like some of the other classic music modules of the age, or keyboards of the age. I mean, I saw someone, again, another advert the other day for a Jupiter 8. Whether it was truthful or not, it was a Jupiter 8, and that Jupiter 8 was up for £23,000. Given that that was probably about £1,400 UK when it was originally brand new, that's a hell of an investment for some legacy tech. So that was number 3 in terms of the toys. Now there is one other toy, and I'll come on to that in a sec. Just put that down. Okay, the last toy, and I can't get it out at the moment because it is bolted to the bottom of the box that Mike gave it me in. So effectively, all this stuff came in a self-built rack that Mike has used, and he's used it when he's been gigging with his band. So it's obviously been on the road with him over the period of time, and that is an Alesis Microverb. And this is the original Microverb, the one that was produced in 1984, and spawned the Microverb 2, 3, and 4. I think there were four Microverb models, but again, I'd have to go and look that up because I'm doing that off memory. And pretty much every keyboard player I know, including me, I have 3 Alesis micro units. I've got, Microverb and MIDI-verb units, I should say. I have 2 MIDI-verb units and a Microverb unit sitting in storage. But every keyboardist I knew who was on a budget had a Microverb unit, or a MIDI-verb unit, should I say. So it was kind of stock requirements. Obviously, if you're into studio recording, or you're a semi-pro or a pro musician, you had units from other manufacturers that were more akin to what you needed. But if you were a poor, struggling musician, then you normally made your way to the local music store and said, I need an effects unit, and the Microverb or the MIDI-verb is the one for me. So I've got the original, a Mark 1, and it is in the case. It's absolutely filthy, needs a good clean, and I will have to unbolt it from the case, so I am not going to do that just at this point in time until I'm ready to film. So they are the toys that have been loaned to me. As I say, special thanks to Mike for loaning to me. We met last week, sort of went out for dinner because we're allowed to socialise. So we went out to dinner one evening, and he was very kind to lend these to me. So watch out on the channel. It probably will be several weeks before you see videos of this stuff to start filtering through. And I do apologise if you're thinking that there's not a lot of content coming through. That's probably for 2 reasons. Number one, coming out here to film at the moment is difficult because it's very, very cold. So I can only stand so long out here actually filming. As I say, we've been using the Goldfish Bowl for other things, but I will start filming back in there again shortly. So I do apologise for that, but that's the reason why. It's just been too cold to do filming. So I filmed a whole load of mailbag stuff, which is slowly sort of coming through, but actually getting into sort of more of the content around the series on the Muse Research, Revenge of the Clone. There are more episodes coming. I think some more parts will turn up next week, so hopefully I shall be able to do this next week and show you the parts that have turned up and start filming more of the Revenge of the Clone, because hopefully I should be able to make some more progress on this. I've been playing with this in the background, but I haven't got to the point where I've got enough materials, probably the wrong word, but enough conclusions is probably more the right word, to actually film the next episode of Revenge of the Clone. But it is coming, honestly, it is coming. Anyway, until next time, live long and prosper. Bye bye.
bye.